I was in the middle of presenting Q4 projections to the executive board when my phone started ringing. Not vibrating. Ringing. Full volume. With that unmistakable Nigerian gospel ringtone. Everyone in that glass conference room on the 47th floor of Morgan Stanley turned to stare at me. My carefully practiced American accent froze in my throat. "I'm so sorry," I said, reaching for my phone with shaking hands. I thought I'd turned it off. But as I looked at the screen, my perfectly controlled world shattered into a million pieces. The caller ID read, "Mama." Not mom. Not mother. Mama. In all caps. With the Nigerian flag emoji next to it. Before I could decline the call, my 58-year-old mother's voice boomed through the speaker. "Adaeze. Kidu. You don't dey forget your mama. 3 weeks you no call me." Loud. Clear. Undeniably Nigerian. In front of the chief financial officer, 2 senior VPs, and the CEO of Morgan Stanley's investment banking division. The same people who had been calling me Adaeze Johnson for 5 years. The same people who thought I was born in a small town in upstate New York and went to a local high school before Columbia. The same people who had no idea that Adaeze Okonkwo from Enugu State, Nigeria, had spent half a decade hiding every trace of her identity to survive in corporate America. That phone call. That was the beginning of the end. Or maybe it was the beginning of the beginning. I still can't decide. Let me take you back to how this whole mess started. I landed at JFK in January 2018 with a master's degree in economics from University of Nigeria, Nsukka, one battered suitcase, and dreams bigger than the Manhattan skyline. My student visa was legitimate. My credentials were excellent. My English was perfect, British inflected, Oxford Dictionary precise. What I didn't have was any idea how much that perfect English was about to become my biggest problem. My first job interview was at a boutique consulting firm in Midtown. I wore my best suit, the one my mother had saved 6 months to buy me before I left Nigeria. I answered every question flawlessly. My analysis of their case study was, and I'm not being proud here, brilliant. The interviewer, a white woman named Jennifer with that corporate smile that never reaches the eyes, leaned back in her chair. "Your accent is quite interesting," she said. "Where did you say you were from?" "Nigeria," I replied, still naive enough to be proud. "I just arrived last month for my graduate program at." "I see." She cut me off. "Unfortunately, we are looking for someone with more cultural fit. Someone who understands the American market." "You understand?" I understood perfectly. My accent had just cost me a job I was overqualified for. It happened again. And again. And again. By my 10th rejection, I was sleeping on my cousin Chioma's couch in the Bronx, watching my savings evaporate, and wondering if my mother's friends back in Enugu were right when they said NNE, that America journey no waste of money. Stay here and marry a good man. That's when Chioma sat me down with her Nigerian friend Blessing, who worked at JP Morgan. "Adaeze, you need to code switch," Blessing told me, her own accent completely American. "I'm not saying it's fair. I'm saying it's survival." "Code switch how?" "Your accent. You need to change it. These people hear African and think poverty, charity cases, scams. They hear American and think competent, trustworthy, intelligent. Is it right?" "No." "Is it reality?" "Yes." "But that's how I got my job. That's how I got promoted twice. That's how I went from sleeping in a basement in Jersey to having a 1-bedroom in Battery Park." She leaned forward. "You can keep your pride and stay broke, or you can do what you have to do and eat." I went home that night and cried. Then I got angry. Then I made a decision. If they wanted American, I'd give them American. I spent 3 months watching YouTube videos. American movies. News anchors. I practiced in the shower, on the subway, walking down the street. I dropped my British inflections. I flattened my vowels. I killed the rhythm that made my English sound like music. I murdered my own voice to survive. When I walked into Morgan Stanley for my interview 6 months later, I was Adaeze Johnson. Not Adaeze Okonkwo. Ada, friendly, simple, American. Johnson, my mother's maiden name, anglicized and sanitized. Tell me about yourself, Ada, the hiring manager said. I grew up in a small town in New York, I lied, my accent perfect flat American. Always loved numbers. Went to Columbia for my master's. Not technically a lie, I did go to Columbia. I just left out the Nigerian undergraduate degree and the fact that my small town was actually Enugu with a population of 722,000. I got a job offer 3 days later. For 5 years, I lived 2 completely separate existences. At work, I was Adaeze Johnson. I wore my natural hair straightened into submission. I brought turkey sandwiches for lunch. I said the awesome and totally and no worries. I laughed at jokes I didn't find funny. I nodded when people complained about immigrants. I stayed silent when someone in the break room said, "Those people just need to learn English." Those people. Like my mother, who spoke 4 languages fluently. Like my father, who had a PhD in agricultural engineering. Those people. But every evening, the moment I stepped off the subway in the Bronx, I became Adaeze again. I went to St. Anthony's Nigerian Catholic Church on Sundays. I cooked jollof rice and egusi soup. I video called my mama and spoke Igbo. I sent money home, $500 every month, without fail, from my $95,000 salary that my family thought was millions of dollars. My mother didn't understand why I couldn't visit. I tell her, "Mama, the work is too much. Next year, I promise." The truth. I was terrified of going back to Nigeria and somehow losing my American accent. Terrified that I'd return to New York and my performance would slip. I lived in constant fear. Fear of running into someone from work at a Nigerian party. Fear of someone Googling my name and finding my real identity. Fear of my accent slipping during a presentation. The money was good. I got promoted. Then promoted again. Associate to VP track in 3 years. My colleagues called me a rock star. My boss told me I was exactly the kind of talent Morgan Stanley needs. All because I'd erased myself. The worst part wasn't the lying. It was the loneliness. I couldn't date Nigerian men, too risky. They might know someone who knew someone at my office. I tried dating American men, but I could never be fully myself. How do you explain to a white boyfriend why you have 2 names, why you code switch on phone calls, why you flinch every time someone mentions Nigeria? I had work friends who knew Ada. I had Nigerian friends who knew Adaeze. Nobody knew both. Nobody knew me. At night, alone in my overpriced studio in Hell's Kitchen, the one I could finally afford but couldn't invite anyone from church to because how would I explain the rent, I'd lie awake wondering, what thing I do with my life? I'd achieved the American dream. I was miserable. Then my mother's sister, my Aunt Ngozi, died. Suddenly. Heart attack. She was 52. My mother called me crying, "Ade Biko. Come home for the funeral. We need you. Your auntie loved you so much." I made excuses. Work. Projects. Deadlines. "I'll send money for the funeral, Mama. I'm so sorry." After I hung up, I threw my phone across the room and sobbed. What kind of person doesn't go home for their aunt's funeral? What kind of daughter chooses a fake identity over her own family? The kind who's terrified of losing everything. But the universe has a way of making decisions for you. That board meeting, the one where my whole world exploded, was supposed to be my coronation. I was presenting a deal I'd structured, a $50 million acquisition that would make the firm millions. If it went well, my boss had hinted at promoting me to executive director. At 32. Youngest in the division's history. I'd practiced my presentation 50 times. Every word in perfect American English. Every slide flawless. I'd even practiced my casual confidence laugh. I turned my phone off. Or at least I thought I had. But that morning, I'd gotten a WhatsApp voice note from my cousin back home. I'd listened to it at 5 a.m., before my workout. When I'd finished, I must have forgotten to silence my phone completely. So when Mama called, because she'd been trying to reach me for 3 days and was worried because, Adaeze, even when you're busy, you always call me on Sundays, what is happening? The phone rang. And rang. And rang. I watched my entire career flash before my eyes in that glass conference room. My boss, Robert Chen, raised an eyebrow. Ada, are you going to answer that? My hand moved in slow motion. I should have declined the call. I should have turned off the phone. I should have done anything except what I did. I panicked and answered it. Adaeze. Finally. This girl, you won't kill me with worry. Your cousin Chisholm said you've been working too hard. Are you eating? You know how you used to get when you don't eat. Remember that time in Enugu when? Mom, I'm in a meeting, I whispered, my American accent completely gone, pure Igbo-inflected English falling out of my mouth. I'll call you back, okay? I beg, I go call you. The silence in that conference room was deafening. I'm sorry, I said, in American Eddie voice again. That was just. Your mother, the CEO said. Jenna Martinez, a no-nonsense Puerto Rican woman who'd climbed from analyst to CEO and had a reputation for seeing through everyone's bullshit. Who called you Adaeze? My mouth opened. Nothing came out. My family calls me, it's A. Your resume says your name is Eddie Johnson. Born in upstate New York. Jenna looked at me with those sharp eyes that had closed billion-dollar deals. That's not your mother's voice I heard. That's not an upstate New York accent. Is there a problem? Robert cut in, sensing danger. Ada's track record speaks for itself. This seems. I'm not questioning her work, Jenna said. I'm questioning why one of our VPs is apparently working under a fake identity. The room temperature dropped about 40 degrees. It's not fake, I said quickly. Johnson is my mother's maiden name. Ada is, it's short for Adaeze. People have trouble pronouncing Nigerian names, so Nigerian. Jenna said it like she was tasting the word. You're from Nigeria. It wasn't a question. Yes. My voice was barely a whisper. Interesting. Your resume says you're from New York. It says you went to local schools. It says you have no international background. Jenna leaned forward. That's called fraud, Ada. Or Adaeze. Or whoever you really are. They didn't fire me immediately. They suspended me pending investigation. I sat in my apartment for 3 days, watching my phone blow up with messages. From work, OMG Ada, what happened? From church, Adaeze, someone said you work at Morgan Stanley. Under a different name. Is this true? From my mother, NWAM, you sound strange on the phone. Are you okay? What happened? The investigation revealed that I hadn't technically committed fraud. My degrees were real. My social security number was legitimate. I'd never lied on official documents, just on my resume and in conversation. But the damage was done. We're transferring you to back office operations, Robert told me in a conference room, not meeting my eyes. Client-facing roles require trust. I'm sure you understand. Translation: we can't fire you without legal risk, but we are burying you. My salary would stay the same. My career was dead. That night, I sat in my apartment and stared at my reflection. At my straightened hair. At my professional clothes. At the Adaeze Johnson nameplate on my desk. Then I called my mother. Mama, I said, in full Igbo, not caring who heard. I want to come home. I need to come home. Just for a visit. I need to remember who I am. Ehi. Finally. My daughter is coming home. God has answered my prayers. But I didn't just go home to Nigeria. First, I did something I should have done 5 years ago. I walked into Robert's office the next day. I quit, I said. He looked up, surprised. Ada, if this is about the transfer. My name is Adaeze. I said it loud and clear. Adaeze Okonkwo. And I'm tired of pretending to be someone I'm not so that you can feel comfortable. That's not fair. We gave you opportunities. You gave Adaeze Johnson opportunities. You would have never hired Adaeze Okonkwo. We both know that. I placed my resignation letter on his desk. I came to this country with a degree, with skills, with intelligence. But none of that mattered as much as my accent. So I changed it. I changed my name. I changed my hair. I changed everything about myself to fit into your world. Ada, Adaeze, the business world is racist. Say it. The business world is racist. It's okay. I lived it. I stood up. But I'm done. I'm done being who you need me to be instead of who I am. What are you going to do? I don't know yet. But I'll do it as myself. I went back to Nigeria for 6 weeks. I buried my head in my mother's lap and cried for the first 3 days. I ate home-cooked meals. I spoke Igbo without code switching. I went to the market without straightening my hair. My family asked about America. I told them the truth this time. So the America money, it's not as much as we thought. No, Mama. I make good money. But New York is expensive. Very expensive. The rent, the food, the transport, by the time I send money home, I'm living like someone making half my salary. And they treat you well? I hesitated. Then, no, Mama. They don't. Not when they know I'm Nigerian. My mother held my face in her hands. Then why stay? That was the question, wasn't it? I came back to New York after 6 weeks. But I came back different. I didn't straighten my hair. I wore it natural, big, beautiful, unapologetically African. I started a consulting firm. Okonkwo Analytics. Not Johnson. Okonkwo. I specialized in helping African immigrants navigate corporate America. I taught them what I'd learned. Yes, code switching is sometimes necessary. But you shouldn't have to erase yourself to survive. My first client was Blessing, the same friend who told me to change my accent 5 years ago. I'm tired too, she admitted. I got the job. I got the money. But I lost myself. Can you help me find both? Yeah, I told her. I think I can. Within a year, I had 40 clients. Within 2 years, I had a team of 5 consultants. Within 3 years, major corporations were paying me 6 figures to train their diversity and inclusion programs. The same companies that wouldn't hire Adaeze Okonkwo were now paying her to teach them how to stop being the reason people like her had to hide. Last month, I got an email from Jenna Martinez, the CEO from that board meeting. Adaeze, it read. I've been following your company's growth. I want to hire you to consult for Morgan Stanley. We need to do better. I need to do better. Will you consider it? I stared at that email for a long time. Then I replied, yes. But I'm coming as Adaeze Okonkwo. No code switching. No accent changes. No pretending. That's the deal. Her response came within an hour. I wouldn't have it any other way. So when people ask me if I regret hiding my identity for 5 years, I tell them the truth. I regret that I had to. I regret that the system is built in a way that makes talented people erase themselves to survive. But I don't regret who I became in the aftermath. Because that phone call from my mother, the one that exposed me in front of the entire executive board, didn't destroy my career. It saved my life. I'm Adaeze Okonkwo. From Enugu, Nigeria. Living in New York, USA. And I belong to both worlds now. Not as Adaeze Johnson. As myself. And that's worth more than any promotion they could have ever given me. So tell me, have you ever changed yourself to fit in? Drop your story below. And if you know someone who needs to hear this, someone who's hiding their identity to survive corporate America, tag them. Because nobody should have to choose between their career and their culture. Subscribe for more real Nigerian diaspora stories. Not the Instagram version. The truth.